This is Scout Israel, and we are in the middle of the war. We need to know what happened, why it happened, what can we do about it. So, we're going to first focus on what happened. Now, a week ago, it was the Jewish festival of Simchat Torah. It was 50 years since the Yom Kippur War, which was a war, I even know, ironically enough, could have been planned this way, where Israel was surprised by two armies, the Egyptian army and the Syrian army, and was completely unprepared for a war. In this situation as well, Israel was completely unprepared for this war. What happened? Now, what happened is not so simple. It's not so simple because many people around you will be talking about fake news, will be talking about stories that didn't happen, and will tell you even both sides are perpetrating incidences of fake news. I would claim most of the incidences of fake news tend to come from Hamas, and the incidences of inaccurate reporting tend to come from the Israeli side, because we don't really know we barely have come to grips with what went on in Israel as it is. We're certainly in a society and a government and a nation that is under trauma at the moment, dealing with things happening as they happen. So, a week ago was the Jewish festival of Simchat Torah. There was a surprise attack carried out by Hamas, the Hamas government in Gaza. They are terrorists, but I would like to emphasize the word government. They are, again, in the video to do with why this happened. I'll deal with the idea that Hamas were elected by their people. They do represent the people of Gaza to a certain extent. And they chose to attack Israel. And they chose to do this by what it now looks to be a well-planned operation. So, number one, what happened before? Before, the setup to this was years of, I actually firmly believe now, deliberate appearance of being incompetent. In 2005, the Israeli government pulled out from Gaza, leaving Gaza under the control of the Palestinians, who then elected Hamas. Almost immediately as the disengagement happened, 44 Qassam missiles were shot over at Israel. Since then, yearly, there have been a high number of rockets shot at Israel involving Israeli deaths. In response to this, Israel built a system known as the Iron Dome system to protect most Israeli cities from these missiles, with a certain amount of success, not 100% successful. In response also to many of these missile attacks in year after year, there are a number of operations against Gaza by the Israeli government. So there were some very, very vicious wars in Gaza. Operation Cast Lead, Amud Anan, which translates as Pillars of Cloud of Defense, I think it was known, Sukkeitan, all these very, very vicious wars in Gaza. And then most recently there was a negotiated settlement, and not exactly peace, but some kind of ways of dealing with this with Qatar, culminating in the end of September 2023. Qatar actually negotiating various different border agreements with Hamas. This, I firmly believe, was all one big ploy. Hamas was starting to make themselves look as if they were pro what we're going to call normalization. Also, that's in the next video. We're going to discuss more of the background. But the bigger story here is also Saudi Arabia finally deciding that they're going to, as them being the biggest power in the Middle East, the biggest power that benefits in the Middle East, getting rid of some of the Middle Eastern conflict by firstly negotiating a peace with Iran, negotiating peaces with Israel too, and I firmly believe this was with a view to creating better kind of trade corridor within the whole Middle East as a whole, and also looking forward more to the future when oil is less going to be used because it's grossly inefficient. The Saudi Arabia themselves are looking forward to nuclear power, and they're actually getting agreement with the Western countries for having nuclear power in Saudi Arabia. But Saudi Arabia always sees itself as opposed to Iran. And here Iran is one of the backers of Hamas. But it's very difficult for Hamas to ignore Saudi Arabia, so they very much kind of look to be at least not really raising their voices against these agreements with Israel. And this was all one big ploy. So what happened? 7 days after they had come to this border agreement mediated by Qatar, they carried out one of the most successful, one of the most what's a good word for it? One of the most novel, I would say, one of the most novel attacks against Israel that really has been carried out ever in the 50 years. Best organised as well. To do this, you have to have, speaking as somebody with a limited amount of logistical knowledge to do with military tactics. Amazing logistics. What did they do? They simultaneously, emphasising the word simultaneously, bombed using drones mobile gun towers. Israel created these mobile gun towers with cameras on them so they wouldn't have to put their own troops at risk, but numerous loads of them along the borders. They took them out. At the same time, they flew over paragliders. Recently learned that they've been trained, or the suggestion that they've been trained by a German paragliding specialist on the use of paragliders. They made use of this and paraglided over the border fence, took these out with bombs. That, by the way, that's a suggestion. I'm not 100% sure, so please don't sue me. But they did do the paragliding simultaneously. That's not a suggestion. And at the same time ramming the fence with tractors and sending troops through their terrorists through their attack tunnels, and shooting missiles over at major Israeli cities and closer Israeli settlements to keep Israel occupied and in the bomb shelters, whilst the Israeli civilians were in their bomb shelters, and army too, both in the bomb shelters. The militants, as soon as they got over the border or barrier with Israel, split up. I believe there were 39 different incursions, and they all went in different directions, some heading towards military installations and taking out any military that could stop them. At the same time, a whole detachment went to a music festival where they massacred more than 120 music participants at this music festival, taking kibbutzim, kidnapping 150 Israelis. Or at the present time, we're not sure because we're finding corpses from things like the music festival. It goes without saying that this is a humanitarian crisis. It goes without saying that this is definitely transgressing crimes against humanity. That peaceful non-combatants were attacked. I have a YouTube short about this. One of the mission statements of the music festival was brotherly love. So this is clearly not a military target. Also, it should be explained with the music festival, and this goes into a little bit of the mindset of Hamas, which I'm going to explain in the third video. Attack on the music festival was perfectly planned. They went straight to the music festival, and they stood, a lot of the Hamas terrorists stood in the exits of the music festival so that when people fled, they would then be gunned down. They were also waiting for people outside the bomb shelters at the music festival, because they knew that the bomb shelter was where people would go as soon as the missiles attacked. It was coordinated, it was amazing, and it was pretty vile. Of 120 people and more corpses being found every day. In terms of the communities that they took over, they killed babies. We know, we have accounts of them killing babies. You may hear that this is a lie. Yeah, no, this is an inaccuracy. On some of the news sites you'll hear tales of them beheading babies. We have no evidence of that. Do we have evidence of them killing babies? Yes, we do. Hamas have been releasing a lot of videos over TikTok which are completely false. I saw there's one of children in a cage. They're doing this on purpose so that you won't know what's true and you won't know what's fiction. You can fact check everything I've said. Fact check how many children that they've killed. Though be aware of obviously your own bias when you fact check. Don't just go, oh well, it's an Israeli newspaper, it must be wrong, so look for another source. You'll still find it. Children killed, women sexually assaulted, bodies mutilated. We have certain evidence of bodies mutilated, and people taken into kidnapped and taken into Gaza. Of course, you're going to hear from Hamas repeatedly again and again and again. These were all military targets. Yes, so this would mean an 85-year-old woman, for example, who was taken into captivity as kidnapped, taken into Gaza. She, of course, is a military target, and the 6-month-old, that would be a military target too. So the next thing you're going to be saying to me is, oh, but Israel is... Firstly, Israel is no better. So watch the next video for that, but a little... so you're not left hanging, a little spoiler here is there is a certain difference to the motives behind what Israel does, the method behind what Israel does, and the general theme behind what Israel does. Not good, but not the same. We're not going to be doing equivalents here. But this is a basic rundown of what's happened, what's been happening with me. So personally, I live in Jerusalem. I can, as a first-hand witness, will attest to the, at least in the first 3 days of the war, there were numerous rocket attacks on Jerusalem, which is a first, and it means that the Hamas are now using a long-range rocket provided by Iran called the Fajr 5. So when you see in the news Iran are not involved, yeah, Iran are not involved. Of course they're not involved. I suppose Hamas made these long-range missiles themselves. Now these are Iranian-built missiles with a guidance system known as the Fajr 5, and they can now reach Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. I was running with my family down to the bomb shelter, which is I don't have to explain, we're safe, but it's a very scary experience. All these things which I've mentioned have been verified, and just also so we're obviously not showing one side of the story now. Well, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry, well over 1,500 Palestinian casualties at the date of the last time we researched this, which was yesterday, have been killed. And they've been killed as a result of mainly IAF, Israeli Air Force bombing. Also, let's give the background on this. What does this mean? So, there have been instances. So, every time Israel bombs a building, it will normally have a strategic reason they are bombing it. For example, there was a building which was recently bombed. See if we can get footage of that. This building was bombed, according to Israel, because there was an attack tunnel underneath it, or a military installation underneath it. As with most time Israel bombs, Israel sends at least text messages to say they're bombing. There's no country in the world that normally does that. They're also, why does Israel do a really, what should be a morally repugnant method of bombing in a civilian area? Because that is where Hamas put their military installations, because they are using their people as shields. Oh, so maybe Israel shouldn't bomb there because there's civilians there? The question and the conundrum of the Israeli army and the Israeli Air Force, Air Command, is what do you do when your civilians are being attacked from missiles that come from a civilian area? As the government, you do not have the luxury of saying, we will there should just be peace, and we should just give up and hope the other side, try and convince the other side in peaceful methods to peacefully not attack us. That isn't happening. This is a group who've just coordinated one of the most well-planned and well-motivated attacks on Israel in the past 50 years. There is no discussing peace with Hamas. You're going to have to wait to the second video to find out who are Hamas, but there's no talking peace with Hamas. That has repeatedly been said by Hamas. I'm going to give some different links and examples of this as I'm talking here. What would you do? Israel's attitude is to go for military targets. One thing I'm going to be discussing in the third video is what's going to happen, and it doesn't look pretty, and you might well be calling for restraint. So look for the third video to find out what could you possibly be doing with that. All the way through this, as I'm talking now, people are losing their lives. This is not acceptable. What can you do? Every single video I'll be telling you to donate to United Hatzalah, which is an organisation which saves both the lives of Arabs and Jews. It's an Israeli organisation. It's an ambulance service. Links below. Donate to United Hatzalah. Like, share and subscribe.